Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. One Viking to the IR, another Viking off the IR. What's the impact?
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. And I guess Brock Purdy got exposed. Let's expose him again.
Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. Noah Reef today, eh? So we get to make his gambling picks for him then? Is that how that works? Greg Joseph, over 9 field goals. Punching.
Let's go.
And no gloating from him either for winning his parlay last week. That's today on the Minnesota Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party.
Thursday episode of the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Really glad you've joined us today, both on YouTube, the Locked On Sports Minnesota channel, and on audio, the Locked On Vikings feed, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You also might be watching us on the 24/7 YouTube live stream, now available at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Please check that out as well and find us in a myriad of ways. The SXM app, Roku, Amazon Fire. So many ways to consume the content here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. You met Luke Inman. You met Luke Braun. Arif Hassan off today, but we will be joined by Ron Johnson a little bit later in the show, a host here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL, one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. A key Vikings pass rusher to the IR, a role-playing running back off the IR. We'll get into that. We'll get into the San Francisco 49ers today, and Luke Braun saying Brock Purdy got exposed in his first NFL loss. The deadline looms in 2 weeks. What could happen in the next 2 weeks that could affect the Vikings' decision-making? We'll also make Week 7 parlay picks and, of course, talk to RJ, Ron Johnson. All right, gentlemen, let's do the newsy thing first. Marcus Davenport to the IR. I think we expected it. Didn't look good. Second ankle injury of the year. He's out minimum 4 weeks. Vikings now down a key pass rusher. And as a bummer as it is, Luke Inman, DJ Wanham does not get to face Justin Fields every single week. That's the one guy where I trust DJ Wanham against. Not sure if I do against the Brock Purdys and the Jordan Loves and the whoever else is of the world. But the Vikings lose Marcus Davenport. How big a hit to the defense?
DJ Wanham, Hall of Famer versus the Bears. Anyways, can we just keep playing the Bears? Yeah, Davenport hurts, man. It's going to be tough because you saw the impact he was making when he was healthy out there. The defense just in general, just as a whole, not just up front, just in general, seemed to click a little bit more when Davenport was out there early on. The struggle those first 3 weeks or so, especially. I remember no one outside of Daniil was winning any one-on-one battles up front. I mean, Patrick Jones has one of the worst PFF grades in the league right now. 30.2 overall, 44.7 pass rush grade. His tackling hasn't been any better. That's actually atrocious. 26.5 tackling grade per PFF. So I don't know. Davenport definitely gave him that second guy up front who is consistently winning these one-on-one matchups, getting home when Flores dialed up the blitzes, put all those guys in one-on-one situations, 2 sacks in those 4 appearances. Now, I will say, Davenport went out relatively early in the Bears game last week, early second quarter, and a lot of their big splash plays, a lot of good pressures and sacks came after he was out. Devil's advocate, of course. Obviously, you were playing against a rookie D2 quarterback, so I get that part as well. All right, let's keep everything in check here. But week by week, though, just in general, and we talked about this on Monday, I think the defense has taken a step forward and looked more and more comfortable every single game that's gone by. And I think you're seeing, outside of Daniil, who's been a freak so far, when Flores dials up these blitzes, if he's not going to get help from guys like Patrick Jones, maybe DJ Wanham, Andre Carter is going to have a little bit bigger role now, maybe. I think you're going to see Flores utilize anyone and everyone else who's shown they can excel in getting into the backfield a little bit more often. So guys like Josh Metellus, he's been hot. Harrison Smith, we know he can blitz well off the edge. Ivan Pace Jr., he's got an 88 pass rush grade right now per PFF. Who knows? Maybe we see a little bit more Brian Asamoah, That's been a little bit disappointing, to be honest. But who knows? Who's gonna be stepping up? I think now it's about finding guys who can just win one-on-one matchups the most, get them on the field, and send them after the quarterback at this point.
I wasn't planning on doing this segment today, but I just uncovered it in real time.
Analytics fans rejoice. It's time to get educated.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
With the nerdy stat of the day.
DJ Wanham, I looked through his
I knew it was going to be Wanham. I knew it.
I looked through his year-by-year game logs. He has the most pressures each year against the Bears in his 4-year career. Every single season of his career, he's had his best game against Chicago. That includes last week at Soldier Field.
Is it always at Chicago, too?
3 of the 4 years was
That's
at
incredible.
Chicago. 1 year.
I love it.
To do it 2 years is like, okay, kind of fluky, coincidence, whatever. 4 years, though, something's clicking over there versus Chicago. I don't know.
Yeah, does mean it's all downhill from here, though, Luke Braun. And Marcus Davenport's out, too. And Patrick Jones, like Luke said, has been bad. So what do the Vikings do?
I mean, they've got to do the same thing they did the first 3 weeks, or at least try to, right? The bummer is, I don't know if they really have somebody outside of Danielle Hunter who I consistently trust to win one-on-ones. I honestly, the next best pass rushing entity on the team might be freaking Ivan Pace. And that's mostly because he's getting running backs, right? Mm-hmm. That's an issue. I think maybe the biggest issue in team building that the Vikings had this offseason, now that we know how things have borne out, that they don't this defense is set up to give people one-on-ones, and one-on-ones are opportunities, right? Hey, you are head up against a guard. That guard has no help because of the way that we've manipulated the protection. Beat him, you can get a sack, and or at least get a pressure. And I'm sorry, Dean Lowry is not getting that done. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see more Dean Lowry. We're going to see more Wanham, more Patrick Jones, and we're going to be disappointed by that because I don't think any of those players are playing very well right now. And they're just really thin at that disruptor kind of defensive line position. There's a lot of guys that can take up space, that can be role players, that can get in a gap, can, run fit fine, I guess. But they don't have anybody that can proactively be a game wrecker outside of Danielle Hunter. Mm-hmm. So they'll probably just have to start manufacturing this. It's going to all have to be taken up on the whiteboard. And, well, you're going up against Kyle Shanahan on the whiteboard. Good luck.
So the ripple effect is interesting because Davenport's out at least 4 weeks, could be 6, depending on the severity of this ankle sprain. Trade deadline's in 2. Danielle Hunter is probably the most tradable asset on this roster. That is
surely this time everybody talking about Danielle Hunter getting traded will get him traded. Surely we haven't been wrong about this for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, he's the Max Kepler of the Twins. He's the Matt Dumba of the Wild. There's always a guy. There's always a guy you're trying to unload. But it would be a pretty tanky move to not have Marcus Davenport and then get rid of Danielle Hunter. I guess it would be like 2020 with Ngakoue. But I'm curious about how the next 2 weeks could influence this deadline because 2-6 feels a whole lot different than 3-5 and way different than 4-4. And the Vikings have San Francisco and Green Bay. They could lose both. They could win both. I don't think it's impossible that either happens. So do you think that, Luke Inman, these games will have real impact on what Kwesi's going to do? Or do you think Kwesi's kind of made up his mind at this point? What do you think that's going to look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I don't think we're going to know the answer until the deadline comes and goes. And I think the assumption is if they lose these next few games, you would assume Kwesi would start cleaning house. I know a lot of the fan base has been begging, just chomping at the bit for a tank since the Vikings lost their first 3 games and started 0-3. But guys like Danielle, Ezra Cleveland, KJ Osborne, probably all on the chopping block. Maybe a Jordan Hicks or Harrison Smith you get a late day 3 pick for. We know they've already gotten calls, not just lately, but even this offseason about Danielle Hunter too. So there's plenty of value there to be had right now. His stock couldn't be higher, 8 sacks right now through these first 6 games. If you do want to go into sell mode, I think. But I just get the feeling personally, Kwesi's not going to be a huge seller at the deadline, even if they continue to lose. I don't know why. It just feels like he thinks even on let's use Hunter, for example, here, even on a 1-year deal, Hunter's going to be a free agent next year. Hunter's a guy they still want back next year, and moving him pretty much deletes that option, obviously. So I get it's a gamble, but maybe he wants to stay in Minnesota just as much as you want him around next year. And going into year 3 of this, competitive rebuild, the goal is to keep and add more and more talent as much as you can, not get rid of it. And hey, I'm a draft nerd. I want all the picks we can get, but I'm not going to be that surprised when Kwesi's pretty quiet at the deadline, outside of maybe moving somebody like Ezra Cleveland, I could see for maybe a day 3 pick just based off his past moves. But I could be wrong too. I mean, this will definitely be this is a new test for him, right? It's a position we've never seen him in before at the deadline, likely on the outside looking in at the playoffs with multiple, big names banged up like JJ, of course.
Yeah. Surprise buyer last year getting Hawkinson. I would be absolutely stunned if there was a buying element this year, Braun. The comp pick situation could look pretty good in 2025. Like, we'll see how it all plays out. But if Kirk, if they, don't trade them, Kirk off the books, Osborne, Cleveland, Daniil, Harrison, Hicks, like there could be a lot of picks coming their way. But trade deadline, Braun, your thoughts?
So I think with what the Vikings, I don't think they'd get rid of somebody they don't feel like they have an okay backup for. Like, they're not going to get rid of, like, that part of the silliness of the Kirk Cousins thing is like, yeah, they're not going to suffer a Nick Mullins season so that they can get a little bit of extra in compensatory. Like, they're not doing that. They're not putting themselves through that. And I think that's the same deal with Daniil Hunter. I don't know. I've said no, they will not trade Daniil Hunter consecutively for like 3 years, and I've never been burned on that. So I guess I'll just keep letting that ride. But I think a lot of the like rumor and conjecture that's coming out, especially from national media, might be coming from other teams, because I think other teams are seeing what everybody else is seeing. They're going, these guys aren't having a great year. They've lost 4 already. Maybe they don't think that they can pack it in. We got Mr. Analytics up there. Analytics is tank, right? That's what analytics is. So maybe they'll have a fire sale. And I think that they're maybe fielding a lot of calls from teams going, is Daniil Hunter for sale? Is Harrison Smith for sale? But I still don't see the Vikings and their personality that goes all the way up to ownership saying, yeah, we'll pack this one in, especially if they go, say, 1-1 in the next 2, right? Lose to 49ers, beat the Packers. Let's say they do that. And they're sitting there at 3-5. I don't think they look at 3-5 and go, this is unsalvageable. Let's get rid of everyone. I don't even see them doing that
coming up after that too.
Yeah, I don't even see that happening at 2-6. I think they would have had to lose to the Bears, and I think they would have to get killed by the 49ers by about 50 to start thinking that way. Look, Kwesi's a trader, right? He'll field every phone call. Maybe somebody makes a Godfather offer for somebody, but I think if they do sell at the deadline, it's not going to be some core stud player. It's going to be somebody closer to, KJ Osborne. It's going to be somebody that is or it's going to be like Johnny Munt, like somebody that's like, oh, okay, I guess
somebody where
like
there's
the Vidarian Lowe trade,
some viable depth behind him, like you said,
right.
Like Jalen Naylor. Hey, Jalen Naylor, we were pumped during training camp. He looked great. He showed flashes. We're ready to see more of a guy like Jalen Naylor. Sure, we can let go of KJ Osborne, knowing that we're likely not going to sign him next year anyways. I still think there's a chance Daniil Hunter wants to stay in Minnesota, and they find some sort of way to come to him a long-term deal next offseason with him. So I think they're pretty close to the vest, I think, with moving on from Hunter, unless, like you said, Luke, unless it's like a Godfather offer. Sure. 2 first. Okay, sure. Punch it.
Boy, that the thing with Daniil, though, is that they've had that opportunity to do that when he's part of their team, right? They didn't need to
but they had no money. They've had no money the last 2 years. I mean, Kwesi's been cleaning up this Rick Spielman mess for a while since he's been here now. Hopefully,
they found 20 for this year for him, and they could have promised him 20. Like they could have promised.
Are you
money
talking about
the future?
They don't have money to extend him long term?
Well, he said, yeah, he's saying that they've been strapped for cap, which is true, but you can always find the long-term money.
Yeah, they can definitely do it now. I think it's a matter of now he's 30, so he gets to dissolve into ash. He's dead now. Once he'll be 30 next year. So
he's also playing himself into that even higher tax bracket too. With the way he's playing, it's not going to be a bargain. If you hoped he would lose a little value this year, not happening at all. Most disappointing move they could make at the deadline would be to unload Harrison Smith for something stupid, like a future sixth.
Won't happen.
Would be the dumbest way for his career with the Vikings to end, for Kwesi to get basically a trade piece to wheel and deal on draft day.
I have a hot take.
Would be the. Say again.
I have a hot take. Yep. I think Lewis Cine has a better chance to be traded than Harrison Smith.
100%. Agreed.
Like if I were to honestly, that might be the single guy on the team most likely to be traded.
Yeah, no,
they're not using him. He's still a first round pick. He's still got it. Nobody's really seen anything from him, right? Like,
that's almost the best part. Like, nobody really knows.
So you're just people just going off their draft grades, right?
Yeah, I feel like you're seeing this more and more too. Teams are pretty willing now to unload high picks within a 2-year window.
Yeah.
Because that's where the value is. If they think they've got a good read on their roster and that player's talent, unload them for something in year 2. Because in year 4, you've got nothing left. If they're a bust in year 4, it's over, right? Like the Eagles were smart to get rid of Rager when they did and got something for him.
Yeah.
That great take, Bron.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Cam Bynum has taken this next step changes everything with the safety room as well, too. Obviously, you can't bank on Harrison Smith lasting too much longer, but obviously, as long as Flores is around anyways, they've got this role carved out for Josh Metellus as well. But the fact that you can rely on Cam Bynum, and he's shown that next step now, been pretty consistent player on the defensive side of the ball, that opens up some options as well, where it's just like, man, maybe we just don't need or have the room for a guy like Lewis Cine right now.
Yeah, the safety position is in good hands for multiple years.
Feels like it.
I'm not worried at all about Cine being a bust. Like I am, because they didn't get a better player, but I'm not worried about safety at all.
Yeah, it doesn't become much of any. I mean, you'd have to be okay long term with like Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, which, like, sure, I kind of, if you're going to stay in the Flores world, you probably also need a third one that's better than Theo Jackson, but that's not like a first round need.
Maybe it's Jay Ward. We're going to talk 49ers with Ron Johnson, who joins us after a word from Birddogs. Birddogs are fantastic. Let me start with that. I love my Birddogs. I wear them constantly. The shorts all summer were fantastic. I'd wear them to the gym. They would sculpt my thighs, give me a nice look. They're very light and malleable. They're not stiff with the restricting cotton fabric, and they've got that anti-stink sweat wicking fabric. They are so wonderful. I love my Birddog shorts. And then you pivot to the cool fall, and you wear the joggers in the morning where there's that chill in the air, and they hug your leg, and they feel so good. They're good for any occasion. It's like when you're putting together your fantasy team, you need a flex player. Birddogs are the flex pants. Wear them golfing, wear them on a date, wear them lounging around the house, wear them out on your deck when you're working. They're so fantastic and versatile. So now the deal is you can go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL, enter promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout, get a free Birddogs water bottle. I've got the tumbler here that I drink my coffee out of every morning, and then you get the water bottle. You can go hydrate when you go work out later in the day. Birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL, free water bottle at checkout. You're not going to want to take your Birddogs off. I promise you. Go get some Birddogs today. We got Ron Johnson coming up here momentarily. We'll bring him into the conversation about the San Francisco 49ers. Coming off a 19-17 loss against the Cleveland Browns, Brock Purdy is human. He has lost a football game. As Ron gets teed up, we'll bring Ron in here right now so he can be here at the start of this conversation. He's at 3Ron Johnson on X, host of the Ron Johnson Show. And Ron, let me give you the first word on this. Brock Purdy, has an L on his resume now for the first time. Is this a quarterback that Brian Flores can slow down?
Let me see. Slow down? No. I think it's going to be a combination of Brian Flores and Kirk Cousins. When you look at Brock Purdy's time of possession, I think that's the thing that slows Brock Purdy down is they can't get in a rhythm. If you give them 3 and outs and he's back on the field fast and he's able to figure it out, he's very unbeatable. If you could sustain drives and also not become a victim of their bully ball offense. If you look at their offensive line and how they run the ball and how they just want to kind of suffocate you and make you be on the defensive, I think Brian Flores is going to have to put the 49ers on the defensive. So what does that mean? He's going to give up some plays. He's going to give up a lot of plays because they have a lot of hot route options. But within the system, and I'm not going to say he's a system quarterback because I know everybody hates that, but within the system, if you look at, if they go 2 tight ends with 2 receivers and a running back, these tight ends understand right away to count the box. If there's 7 to 8 guys in the box, right away they already know, okay, if one of these guys isn't covering me, I'm the automatic hot route. So you're going to give up some of that stuff. But what does that mean? You blitz and replace. So whoever blitzes, the next guy has to replace, knowing I'm covering this tight end. I'm going to give up a catch, but I got to stop him and not allow him to get a 15, 20-yard rumble like George Kittle or Juszczyk seems to get. And that's the key, I think, to dealing with this offense. You got to make Brock Purdy realize you're going to come after him. You're going to blitz him. Can he run? Yes. Is he a runner? No. And so I want them to put him off and put him on the defensive, make him second guess what he's doing. He hasn't been blitzed a ton this year because everybody's been, quote unquote, afraid of this system offense and how well Kyle Shanahan has it moving. But I think if Brian Flores can get after him and then also Kirk Cousins can keep him off the field for long periods of time, that's going to slow Brock Purdy down.
Ron, I'd love your take on what's going on with the Vikes run game right now, because everyone's confused when you see this offensive line is actually playing very well. They're graded out pretty high every week. And last year, that was the thing. It was like Dalvin was always hitting the backfield so often. But now that the offensive line's playing better, they look a little bit more cohesive, but yet still the run game's virtually obsolete. So what is it? Like, what are you seeing when you sit down and watch these games around? What are you seeing? Is it Madison specifically? Is it his vision, lack of patience or something? Is it the run calls themselves? I'd love your take on that.
I'm never going to put it on the running back 100% because, again, every running back, I've been in 3 to 4 different offenses in the NFL. I was a coach for the Colts. I played for the Ravens. I played for the Bears. And so when you look at, and then my time with the Washington football team, I don't think I paid attention to much. But when you look at the run game of like the Ravens, for instance, Jamal Lewis was a power back. His goal was, I'm going to hit the hole as fast as possible. You guys make the blocks. And it was more of a man scheme. When you look at Orlando Brown, Zeus, you had Jonathan Ogden. You had big physical offensive linemen. And then you had Terry Jones at tight end. You had Todd Heap at tight end. So it was less of trying to get to the exterior and more interior runs. Move on to the Bears. It was with Olin Kreutz, and the way they moved, it was more of a zone. Olin Kreutz was a mover, so they had a zone. So the 2 different running back styles were, I'm going to wait for a hole, and then I'm going to hit it. Even if I go to the Gophers, when you talk about Mo Ibrahim in that middle zone read, he's having to scan tackle to tackle as he's running right. So he's running right. He's looking tackle to tackle. He's waiting for something, and then he's got to hit the hole. I don't know if Alexander Mattison has that quick twitch to do it. Dalvin Cook had it. It seems like Cam Akers has it. Alexander Mattison seems better going just downhill, give me a lane, you guys got to block it, let me go. That doesn't work as much in today's offense when you look at Christian McCaffrey, you look at Derrick Henry even. A lot of these teams are doing the delay behind the line zone run. Like you just keep stretch, and then wait for somebody to get too aggressive and overrun your lane, and then you take that lane and get 4 to 5 yards. Our goal is not to break big ones. And I think Alexander Mattison maybe felt a little pressure early on. He felt pressure to like want to be better than Dalvin Cook, want to show everybody I'm better than you think I can be. And so he's pressing the issue too much and not taking what the defense gives him. 4-yard gain on first down is great. 4-yard gain on first down is great because now you're in 2nd and 6. Now a 3-yard gain puts you in 3rd and 3, and it's a very manageable 3rd down. You're ahead of schedule. The Minnesota Vikings have been so far behind schedule that even once Kevin O'Connell gets that play sheet and gets to the red zone, and here's a red zone stat to me that is ridiculous. They've run the ball 15 times in the red zone. 15 times they pass it 40. They have 3 interceptions in the red zone, which is the most. Then you fast forward and you look at the 49ers, 47 runs. 40, that's 32 more runs than the Minnesota Vikings in the red zone. And from a play calling standpoint, people are like, well, yeah, they had 114 plays to the Minnesota Vikings 78 plays. Yeah, how do you get more plays? You effectively run the ball and you get first downs in the red zone. The red zone is not always about, I got to score right now. And I feel like that's where Kevin O'Connell is at times. And maybe that's just a lack of trust in his run game. And that's what I look at is, where's this run game at in the red zone? Because that gives you an inclination in how the coach feels about it. Like, what's my best option to get more yards? And for Kevin O'Connell, he doesn't feel like the run game's there, whereas the 49ers in the red zone, they're like, we're going to run our offense. 47 runs. We're going to put it down your throat. If you can't stop it, we're going to score. And that's the two differences in these offenses. It's just the philosophy of how they run, when they run, the purpose of the run. It felt like, I forgot what game that was, but he came out in 5 straight runs. It felt like very on purpose because everybody's like, you're not getting a run going. Now he's kind of like, just, I don't know if it's there. Let's throw a double hitch out reverse. Like, what are you doing on first down? And so it doesn't always seem like it makes sense right now. And honestly, I don't know, but I'm not going to just put on Alexander Mattison because maybe he has outside zone and the defensive line just plays it perfect. Nobody jumps a lane trying to make the tackle. Everybody just shuffles down saying, let's just stretch the thing out, stretch it all the way out to the sideline. And now he has no room. And now our linebackers can feel. I think that's the big difference is like he's not forcing the defense to get antsy. Dalvin Cook forced the defense at times to get antsy, and they would jump lanes to try to stop him from getting going. And maybe that's just not where teams view Alexander Mattison.
Yeah, I mentioned this on Monday, too. Vikings, one of only 2 teams in the league who haven't scored a rushing touchdown, the other one being the Steelers. And then I saw this morning, Vikings dead last in time of possession as well. So, again, another thing that kind of equates
turnovers will do that, too.
Turnovers will absolutely do that.
Fumble it on the first play of a drive, and then you give up, part of it, too, is the defense is the best in the league at preventing explosive plays, but they still are average statistically despite that because they are giving up dinks and dunks and they give up, 10, 11, 12, 13 play drives all the time. So you are susceptible to this sequence of like a big 12 play drive and the defense gets tired and then you throw an interception or you fumble the ball on the first play of the next drive and then you give up 13 on the way back. I think something like that happened against Kansas City, or it might have just been a 3 and out. But that's going to like totally wreck your time of possession. It's really interesting on Alexander Mattison because I think the difference between him and Cam Akers is this like fascinating one of just like philosophy almost, where I think Mattison has been for the last couple years a lot better than he was as a rookie. And as a rookie, he did just try to be like Dalvin Mini, where he would bounce everything to the outside. He would try to get these edges. Like Dalvin Cook would take an edge that he had absolutely no business taking. And he would just say, F the leverage, I can beat that guy to the edge. And he would, and it would be an explosive. And Mattison would then try to do that. And it would be this negative play. And it would be a struggle back in like 2019, 2020, when he was first learning it. And I thought last year he learned how to be himself a little bit more and be that guy that takes 4 yards and just says, here's where the space is. I'm just running up. Yeah, the linebacker's going to get me. I'm going to lower my shoulder. I'm going to hit him. I'm going to fall forward. 6-yard run. We're happy with that all day. And watching Cam Akers, he has the vision of like a home run hitter all day. Like he wants to hit dingers all day long. He's always just looking for that extra daylight, even if it means a harder path to the second level. And it reminds me in a way of some of the craziest runs. Like it's Adrian Peterson brain. Adrian Peterson was the greediest running back of all time. He would always be looking for the touchdown. Always, 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 always. And, and that would be the famine feast thing. He would get a -2, and then a 98-yard run. And I feel like Cam Akers has that same mentality, obviously not as much talent, but that same mentality. And maybe that is something if we're looking to get explosive runs, right? If we're looking to get rushing touchdowns, maybe there is something to giving that a little bit more time. I don't know. I don't really have a question. I just want to kind of weigh in on that.
No, like to your point though, this is the thing I've always looked at in the NFL, and this is tough. This is a grown man business. These are grown men, providing for their family. You never want to just say, oh, this guy shouldn't be in the game. This guy should be in the game. But if you're saying who secured their spot on the field and who deserves an opportunity, I just feel like when you look at this, and so you look at, and I looked at last year's because people are always like, well, what did Kevin O'Connell do last year? Last year, running the ball in the red zone, first 6 games, he only ran the ball 5 more times, but the biggest difference was he had 7 more touchdowns. Like it was a huge difference. Like he ran the ball and got touchdowns. It was a huge difference. Now, 5 runs, people are like, oh, that's not a big deal. It's a big deal if those runs are getting you 10 yards. Those are getting you more first downs. He had 18 first downs so far this year. He had 24 last year. So what does that mean? if I'm not getting the production in the run game that I think I should be, what's the negative of putting Cam Akers in? And so I think you do have a point there. There's no negative really of letting Cam Akers maybe get 18 carries this game against the 49ers at home and just see what happens. Like if Cam Akers gets 18 carries and the Vikings lose by 7, or if Alexander Mattison gets 18 carries and the Vikings lose by 7, nothing was lost. But what you can gain is maybe an understanding of, look, Cam Akers is a better back with 18 carries than Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison, I think, needs a 24 carry game. Like he's always been, we felt like a production back that needs more volume. Like whenever Dalvin Cook was out, he would have ridiculous games. Like, oh man, this dude just went for 22 carries, 100 yards against the Seahawks and da-da-da. And then you say, okay, well, what does it look like with 15 carries or 7 carries behind Dalvin Cook? And it was always like, oh, he'd have a big run here and there. But then it'd be like, oh, like, yeah, Dalvin Cook's got to be in the game. It feels like a little bit of that this year. Like Cam Akers comes in and you're like, wow, I wonder how this guy could do with 18 carries. And so, again, I don't think the Vikings are too, like, there's certain organizations that you know will be completely like mindless to motion. They're just going to do what it does for the business. I don't care who you are. If I need to sit you, I'm going to sit you. If I need to start you, I'm going to start you. The Minnesota Vikings, from the top down, this is an organization, and there's nothing wrong with this. Again, that cares. They care about their players. They care about the families. They care about the feelings, which is great. Like you don't want to have, I mean, because I think they've become anti-Zimmer so much that they're not willing to make the tough decisions sometimes. And the tough decision right now is, I think, Cam Akers deserves to split. Like if you're going to run the ball 22 times this game, this 49ers should be 11-11. It should be like, you're going to go series 1, you're going to go series 2. You're going to go series 1, you're going to go series 2. And it's just, I don't care. Like we're not doing hot hand and all that. I'm just going to see what happens if I give both of you equal time on the field. And then let's go from there and deal with our metrics after that.
And for me, at least, it's not, Madison's been so bad, get him out of there, bench him. Yeah, it's more that Cam Akers has earned more of an opportunity that he has. And I bet if you ask most position coaches in the league, they'd say, yeah, we probably have, 3-4 guys that deserve 60% of the snaps. And there's just not enough snaps to go around to get everybody what they truly deserve.
Here's one I'll give you, though. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Like, yeah, Puka Nacua has earned the right to get more targets because people are like, oh, Cooper Kupp's going to come back and Puka Nacua is going to suffer. He's not, because they're like, look, instead of throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp 20 times, let's just go 8-8 and give them both balls and see what happens. Right. And that's what I think that's what I'm saying. Like Alexander Mattison is not bad, but it's a Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp situation. Like, why would I suffocate my young talent or my new talent knowing that he's good when this other guy wasn't here? So let's just make both of them good. Let's go Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, like you even it out. Let's go Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. Like you even it out. Like there's times where, hey, look, we have two even look at Marion Barber and Lawrence Maroney. Like the Minnesota Gophers figured it out. Cadillac Brown and Williams. What was it? Williams and Brown. Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams. Like figure it out. When you have two guys, you figure it out and you say, look, here's where we're going with this thing. I can't give you 18 and you 1 anymore. This doesn't work. I got to spread it out between the two of you. So that's where I go with it. I don't think Alexander Mattison has done anything wrong. I just think Cam Akers deserves a chance.
Yeah, the 18-1 is what bothers me. Like, if it
that
wasn't
was terrible.
I don't think Madison is quite good enough to say you get 18 and the other guy gets 1. Let's just strike a little more of a balance. Ron, let me ask you this. Dumb question, but you can help enlighten me. San Francisco, I believe, has scored on their first possession every single game, and the Vikings have struggled in this area. What is the key to a good opening script?
So there's two versions of this, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. There's two versions, though. Peyton Manning's opening script, and I was going to hold up a blank piece of paper because nobody can see it, but it was blank. His opening script was blank. Tom Moore had, and this is how funny it was blank to the point where Jim Sorgi had the clipboard. Normally your clipboard kind of had the plays and you just kind of write notes like this worked, this didn't work, +7, whatever, -1. And you kind of have an idea so you can take it back to coach. Like, hey, here's what your first 15 look like. All right, here's what I'm going to take from the first 15. I like these worked, these didn't work. I'm going to throw those out for the rest of the game. Peyton Manning's was blank. So Jim Sorgi would be over there like actually listening to the play, listening to Peyton and then like writing down what he thinks the formation was, and then he would talk to Peyton after, like, what was that play, dude? Like, we did it in practice too. It would be blank. It would be a blank script. Everybody knows in practice it's even scripted. We had blank scripts for Peyton and we had actual scripts for Jim Sorgi. And it was hilarious where Peyton in practice, even like the backup quarterbacks had to like wear an earpiece in practice because they're like, look, I don't know what you just did there. And so they would like ask him after, he would write it down. They would walk it over to the coach. Hey, coach, he ran blah, 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 383, Z-zip. And they would write it down. So there's no right or wrong to this. But with Kevin O'Connell, this is what I'm wondering. Last year, he was one of the best coaches in the NFL for the first 15 plays. You look at his first 15 plays, his first 8 minutes of the game last year, he was one of the top offenses in the NFL. This year, he's one of the worst. So I don't know what it is, to be honest. I don't know if it's maybe because they're not establishing the run. I don't know if it's because he hasn't done anything different. That's what we don't know. Like maybe teams saw film on him and they're like, I know exactly what this dude's going to do. Like maybe he hasn't, he's not as innovative as we thought. I really don't know the answer to it. But what I will say is if I were to like actually watch the first 15 plays of every game, which I'm not going to, but watch the offensive line play, I guarantee there's pieces in there where they're like, well, if he blocked this guy, this play would have worked. Well, if he caught this ball, that'd be a positive. And also that's part of it too. There's been fumbles and drops in that first drive.
Turnovers.
There's been a lot of turnovers and a lot of drops. Like if you think about TJ Hawkinson drops, KJ Osborne drops, like there's been a lot of random weird drops where you're like, that's an easy 6-yard catch. What are we doing? And so now instead of 2nd and 6 or 3rd and 6, they're in 3rd and 10. And so now they have to run a 3rd and 10 play. And what does that mean? Corners can sit at 7 yards and no, you got to get to the sticks. So that little 8-yard route, that little 7-yard route is not going to work. If you get behind me, hopefully my defensive line has gotten to you by now. And so I think that's part of it too. It's been a terrible start to a lot of games of drops, fumbles, and then you're playing catch up. So you let the team score first, like the Chiefs, and now you feel a sense of urgency to go out there and score the next drive. So I think that's part of the problem too.
Clock management. We're up against the clock here. So Ron, we got to let you go, but at 3 Ron Johnson on X, he is the host of the Friday Roundtable. Tomorrow morning as well. Reggie Wilson from Care 11 will be in the mix. I'll be there, and Julia Daniels as well. Thanks so much, Ron, and enjoy the game on Sunday.
Maybe Kevin O'Connell will hire you to be his clock manager to let him know.
There we go. Need it.
Yeah, I'll tell him when to call timeouts.
All right, appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Ron. I did some deep digging, by the way, on the run game that we talked about, and I was blown away. The Vikings run game is 5th in success rate in the NFL. That is the best success rate they've ever had since the stat began in 2012.
Wow.
Better than Dalvin's best year.
Wow.
Better than Adrian Peterson in 2012. Now, the difference is no explosives. The success rate doesn't account for explosive plays. And the Vikings, like Luke, you pointed out, they don't have any. They don't have any runs over 20 yards. They don't change games on the ground, but they also are not getting off schedule that much.
Yeah, that's Madison. That's
right.
the mentality of I'll just take my space and not have a negative play.
Yep. Rush yards over expected is bad for Madison. It's bad for Akers, but you know who it's worse for? Dalvin Cook. He is the worst in the league in yards under expected, which is insane. How bad? Like his start is. He was
last year too.
Yes,
I don't love that stat, but he was really bad in it last year. For whatever reason, just doesn't like the way that he runs the ball.
Yeah, and small sample size Dalvin too, and he's gotten like 7-8 carries a game in New York because Breece Hall's balling.
Yep,
doesn't look good on Dalvin. Like Dalvin needed the volume, especially I think as he ages, he needed to have a chance to break that explosive, and he's not getting it in New York, and it's not going well for him. So the run game doesn't pass the eye test, but it passes the analytics test. It's a weird duality that we're dealing with there. Could it get better? Yes, absolutely. It could get better and more balance between the two runners. We got parlays. Last week, Arif Hassan was a winner, and we will make our picks again this week. But first, we've got a word from FanDuel. FanDuel is the superior way to get involved with wagering on the NFL. We're into week 7. We've been having a lot of fun with our parlays. And if you want to look at the same bets that we're looking at every week, you want to join in on FanDuel, new customers have a great promotional opportunity. Bet $5, get $200. Yes, 40 times your money. Bet 5, get $200 back in bonus bets straight to your account. And then the world's your oyster. Then you've got hundreds of ways to use that free money. Spreads, player props, over-unders, futures, alternate lines, and some of those wacky props that we throw out here on the football party. You can get in the action as well. Also, NBA starting up, MLB in postseason mode. Make sure to check out all the wagering options at FanDuel.com/lockedon or the FanDuel Sportsbook app and get involved with these football bets. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL, the FanDuel Sportsbook app. We're also brought to you by Jase Medical. You can empower yourself, folks, and give yourself peace of mind by getting the Jase Case. We don't want to feel caught unprepared. Sometimes health issues pop up. They're unexpected. Sometimes you're very sick. You don't have the proper medication, and it takes a long time to get pharmacy orders fulfilled, or you have to sit on hold on the phone, and that's extremely inconvenient. Well, with the Jase Case, you can have 5 life-saving antibiotics chosen for you. You have a consultant that works with you, and they deliver it straight to your door, and you can get those at jasemedical.com, JASE medical.com. Use my code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on that order so you can have that security, have that peace of mind. You won't regret it. Jase Medical, JASE medical.com. All right, parlay time. Arif Hassan was our first to pick this week. He's also our money leader after winning his parlay last week, thanks to a Jalen Hurts touchdown and a Jaguars win. He is going Rams -3. He has texted in Rams -3 with his first wager, and that sends it over to Luke Braun next.
Who are the Rams playing?
I don't know.
Steelers, Pittsburgh Steelers at home.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. I too am shorting a dreadfully bad team. I'm going to take the Raiders -3. I know there's a lot of concern about that quarterback situation, but I spent the last week watching the Chicago Bears film. I'm sorry. I can't do it. The Raiders defense might outscore its offense, and that's all right.
All right. I did some reading about big double-digit underdogs and how frequently they pay. And I would love to use that knowledge this week, but you know what? There aren't any. So I'm going to have to find a team like the Ravens, who are playing at home, taking on a Detroit team that is getting 3 points. But I like having Justin Tucker in my back pocket, where if it's tied at the end, Tucker makes a kick. Okay, at least I get a push out of that. So I'm going to go Baltimore at home. I think Detroit's due for a little bit of a crashing back to earth moment. They might not have either of their top running backs. So let's go Baltimore at home, -3 against the Lions.
I'm going to go with the Chargers +5.5. Justin Herbert, actually great success in Arrowhead, all-time record in Arrowhead, 2-1. So give me the points, 5.5. Think that's going to be a good close game. And then for my player prop, I'm actually going to go with, I do a little digging on this one, Dolphins, Eagles, Raheem Mostert over 12.5 receiving yards. Devin Achane out of the game so far. Mostert been great on the ground, but 12.5 receiving yards, just too tempting to pass up. I'm going to put $100 on that parlay, and that's going to pay out $252.70. $252.70.
Sends it back to me. I did, for the first time, lose on San Francisco scoring first and winning. Not because they didn't score first, because they lost. Here we go. To score first and lose. San Francisco +550. That's it.
Ooh.
That's the ticket right there.
Wow.
+550.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't even have to be a touchdown. It could just be a field goal. They could definitely lose after getting a first drive field goal. So Ravens -3. San Francisco scores first and loses. All right, so with that huge number, I'm just going to bet the minimum because I can win a cool plus 1140 odds, 70 to win, 798.64.
I love it. Swinging for the fence. So you're going to be sweating not only today, not only tomorrow, but all the way up until game time to see if Debo's playing, Trent Williams is playing, and Christian McCaffrey's playing.
If they aren't, it'd actually be great if they aren't, because I think that the first drive can still be successful without them, but they're
absolutely.
more likely to lose without them as well.
Knowing you only need a field goal? Absolutely.
There is nothing, like, it feels so inevitable for no rational reason, just in my heart of hearts, that the 49ers get the ball first and march down and score the easiest touchdown.
100%. Jordan Mason. Or
like
whoever.
8-play drive, takes 3 minutes, 85 yards, like just perfect. I'm also going to go with a 49ers bet. So here's the thing. The Vikings have a superpower, and that superpower is making every single game close, no matter who they are playing. Play against the Chiefs, that game's down to the last 2-minute drill. Play against the Bears, down to the last 2-minute drill. So I am taking the San Francisco 49ers by 1 to 13 points. One of those 4-way winning margin bets. That's at plus 125, and it gives me even a little bit of cushion on that one score.
Wow. That's at plus money, huh?
Yeah.
So
that was really interesting.
Maybe a blowout, but obviously the spread is 7 points. So
it's that it's a 4-way thing. So I'm betting against the 49ers winning by 14 or more and any Vikings win.
Right.
That said, that puts me at plus 325. I'll put 80 on it, just so that you can't say I bet the minimum.
You've maintained your credibility.
Yeah, my street cred.
I've got a Reefs odds right here for you, Sam. Tyreek over 97.5. That's at minus 114. Rams -3. That's at 115. 2-leg parlay plus 250. He goes minimum bet $70 to win 175.67 plus 250.
Very good.
Can I just say just real quick before we wrap up, the scoring in the NFL this year has been way down, especially compared to last year specifically. Ever since they changed all the rules, the scoring's gone way up the last decade or so. Did you just scan the over-unders this week? They are so low, so consistently. Outside of the Chargers-Chiefs game, which is 47.5, even that's not even that high. For those two teams, so many of these over-unders are low 40s, high 30s. There's quite a bit of them. I was shocked. That surprised me quite a bit.
Dolphins-Eagles Sunday night is the 150.
Okay, that's it.
Number, which is going to be a great game.
We have this like too high revolution that has happened that basically Mahomes caused. Mahomes caused the whole league to change, Randy Moss style. But also, I think that the quarterback talent in the league is in a bit of a rut. The best guys are a little younger. We went through 2 decades where you could always rely on it. There's going to be a Manning offense. There's going to be a Brady offense. There's going to be a Rivers offense.
Big Ben,
all
Drew
these,
Brees, tons of them.
Drew Brees, all these guys that were kind of these 2000s dudes that are all now gone and retired. And for like 5 years up until the 2017 draft where we got Mahomes, the best thing we had, it was like Geno Smith, and then the best guy that came out was like Derek Carr, and then the best guy in the next draft was
Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, right. We had this weird rut of quarterback talent, and now those are all the guys in their prime. And the guys that are dynamic are Josh Allen, Mahomes, go to Trevor Lawrence, who's hurt right now. Like, I think that it's there's just not as many elite quarterbacks, but also those guys are like Josh Allen, who are young and susceptible to having down games.
Warren Sharp tweeted, the NFL has the fewest TDs since 2010 at this point. Fewest.
So it's not just down,
plays.
It's catastrophically down. It's way down. And again, these over-unders kind of prove it. These were surprising.
And apparently the largest margin of victory since 2014, which I would not have guessed. It still feels like there's a lot of...
We've been exposed to something a little different. Remember at the beginning of the season when you were like, how many one-score games will there be? And Arif was like the had like the sensible take of like 4 because that's like a normal amount of 1-score games, and we've already blown that out.
6.
They can't do it. Yeah.
That was a fun show. That was the Minnesota Football Party today. Find the audio in the Locked On Vikings feed. Find the video on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel, and please subscribe and find the 24/7 YouTube live stream there as well. For Luke Inman, Luke Braun, and Ron Johnson, I'm Sam Ekstrom saying so long, and we'll talk to you on the Roundtable Friday, and we'll have, I guess, an immediate game preview on Monday before the Vikings and 49ers. Talk to you then.